Ji, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is lecture number 2 for the BS Economics and Finance third year. And this lecture is about the Taylorism, motivation and performance. Like it's a bit early on the list of the management. Actually, we have been, we just started this course so far. We have studied the basic definition of management, and we have seen what kind of functions a manager performs. But this basically is very important because although it doesn't come generally when you study management courses, you first study the planning, then you study organizing, then you study leading, then you study controlling. But to begin with, it is important to have beginning with a kind of Taylorism, motivation and performance. It is important that you people have got the idea, how important it is for a manager to a good motivator. If you really want to take work from the people, like say for example, as a teacher, if I want to take from work from you, I have to be a motivator. I have to motivate you, and this motivation is really important because if you don't motivate people, the people don't give their 100%. This motivation is definitely important in the sense because if you are not able to motivate people, you are not able to take work from them. And similarly, if you are not able to work from them, you will not be able to achieve your goals. Like whatever function you perform, either you do planning, organizing, leading, or controlling, whatever you do, you will not be able to get the the outcomes, or you'll not be able to achieve the goals uh, of your company, of your organization anyway. So it's something, it's important that you basically have an ability to motivate people, and you can only in this way you can improve their performance. If you really want to improve their performance, you will have to be very good at motivating people. And this chapter, actually, his name of this chapter is the Taylorism, because this is the Taylor basically has presented his views. So we'll be talking about the Taylor's views about this motivational performance. Now, the way basically we will be talking about this is the learning outcomes of this particular chapter or course of sorry lecture. We will be trying to understand different ways in which the term motivation is used, and we shall try to understand how motives and motivations influence behavior. The behaviors of the people basically is influenced so much by motivation. Like we generally motivate our children by giving them some kind of incentives that if you take that many marks in the exam, you will get that kind of a prize. And similarly, this motivation is or a kind of a reward that you give to people is always important in the sense because they it always provides. Sorry. Does anybody want to say something? Okay. So explain contemporary interest in work motivation with respect to presentism, the gig economy. This presentism, I hope you understand this, the term presentism. This is the opposite of absenteeism. We will be trying to also understand the meanings of we shall try to understand the work environment from the perspective of presentism as well. Absenteeism is about getting absent from the work. Presentism is the opposite of it. जब presentism की हम बात करते हैं, तो presentism का मतलब ये होता है कि people work extra hours. Like say for example, Japanese basically are workaholic people. They work a lot. Like say for example, similarly Chinese, they work quite big number of hours. And this presentism is not good for their health, is not good for their work as well. Like it is not working long hours always influence your performance in terms of your achievements or in terms of your efficiency and in terms of every kind of the objectives that you achieve. And similarly, recently we have observed the gig economy where you have got temporary people working for the organizations. Like say for example, recently the Kareem and Uber are facing a lot of legal implications because they actually the people who were running their cars, they have filed the case against these companies to give them permanent employment. Like because like say for example, if you think about the Uber structure, अब ये Uber के बारे में सोचिए, the Uber which actually is getting all the rewards and all the money from the profits of these all or cars, but Uber does not own any car. Uber does not employ any of the person basically there in the lot who are actually driving their cars for them. So Uber is like, is not giving them formal employment. If you are not giving them formal employment, you are not giving them perks. तो देखिए जो गिग इकोनॉमी है ये पार्ट टाइमर्स हैं. पार्ट टाइमर जैसे आप ये देखें कि अगर आप उबर और करीम को देखें, उबर एंड करीम पीपल बेसिकली हु आर रनिंग द उबर कार्स, they are all part timers. They don't basically have got the they don't have the basically, like they don't have a kind of, like a formal contract with the Uber. So I don't know basically like how much do you think, like, आपका क्या ख्याल है कि what kind of motivation these all people have? अगर आप, if you talk about the people like of the Uber and Kareem, these all basically people like, say for example, if you think about that these Uber and Kareem people, what is your view that how motivated do you think they are? Because they are not getting any kind of formal employment, or they are not getting any kind of formal perks. Would anybody like to comment about it? Like आपका क्या ख्याल है कितनी motivation होती है Uber और Kareem के drivers में, because they are not actually employed formally with the company and they are running cars on their own for the company, which basically does not like, protect them in the sense कि जाहिर है कि आपको पता है कि वो कोई भी उनके protection provide नहीं करते हैं. अगर एक Uber का driver बीमार हो जाएगा तो उसको Uber की company कोई support नहीं करेगी. इसी तरीके से अगर उबर वाले ड्राइवर को कोई एक्सीडेंट हो जाएगा तो वो भी कभी को इसको सपोर्ट नहीं होगा. एंड सिमिलरली एवरीथिंग दैट हैपेंस बेसिकली इज दैट हैपेंस ऑन देयर ओन. तो ये जो गिग इकोनॉमी है, हाउ डू यू थिंक इज लाइक, इज दिस लाइक इज इट अ गुड वे ऑफ running a business or not? What is your view about it?
हेलो.
Mera, yes.
जी, यस सर. सर इनके लिए यही मोटिवेशन है कि इनको एक्स्ट्रा मनी मिलती है इससे, क्योंकि अगर हम उबर या करीम या इसी तरीके से किसी भी फ्रीलांसिंग का जॉब करते हैं जहाँ पे हम कहीं एम्प्लॉय नहीं होते हैं, लेकिन हम एक कंपनी में एम्प्लॉयमेंट के साथ साथ ये एक्स्ट्रा वर्क कर सकते हैं. एक्स्ट्रा मनी के लिए, एक्स्ट्रा अर्निंग के लिए हम ये ज्वाइन करते हैं. हमें एक तो ये रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी होती है कि हमें टाइम पीरियड नहीं होता कि 9 to 5 की जॉब करनी है. अगर हमें कोई सिक्योरिटी नहीं मिल रही है तो ऐसे हमें कोई बॉन्डिंग भी नहीं है कंपनी के साथ. टाइमिंग की कोई बॉन्डिंग नहीं है, और एक्स्ट्रा वर्क करने की वजह से एक्स्ट्रा अर्निंग जो होती है, तो एक्स्ट्रा पॉइंट्स भी इनको कुछ गेट होते हैं जहां से इनको कंपनी कुछ बेनिफिट्स देती है, कुछ पॉइंट्स देती है. इनको कुछ बोनसेस ऑफिशियली नहीं मिलता, लेकिन अनऑफिशियली इनको कुछ मिलती हैं. उनके एक्स्ट्रा राइट्स गेन करने पर, पॉइंट्स गेन करने पर इनको पॉइंट्स के मिलते हैं.
नहीं देखिए,
तो
अगर आप
ये
ये
इनकी
देखें,
मोटिवेशन है कि
मेरा
एक्स्ट्रा
लाइक
मनी
द
होती है.
क्वेश्चन इज कि if a person is not formally employed and he is not being protected by the legal or kind of like other kind of labor laws, तो वो आपका क्या ख्याल है
ओके
कितनी मोटिवेशन होगी उसकी काम करने की? देखिए ये तो सारे इंसेंटिव्स हैं, जाहिर है जो वो काम कर रहा है,
जी.
लेकिन ये कि वो किसी भी तरीके का लीगल प्रोटेक्शन नहीं है उसके पास. तो that is called the gig economy. तो उसको basically
यस.
तो वो basically the question is a bit different in the sense, of course उसको जाहिर है वो इंसेंटिव मिल रहे हैं तो वो काम कर रहा है. लेकिन ये कि एक बहुत बड़ा एस्पेक्ट मिसिंग है, क्योंकि जब फॉर्मली आप किसी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में जॉब करते हैं तो आपको बहुत सारी चीजें प्रोटेक्टेड
यस,
होती हैं, तो वो
बिल्कुल.
नहीं मिलती प्रोटेक्शन वहां पर उनको.
हाँ, ये प्रोटेक्शन उनको नहीं मिलती है, लेकिन वो काम की बॉन्डिंग भी नहीं होती है. फिर ये है कि क्योंकि ये फॉर्मल जॉब नहीं है,
राइट.
ये इसे सम काइंड ऑफ अर्निंग, ये जिसे एक्स्ट्रा मनी है, एक्स्ट्रा अर्निंग है, ये काइंड ऑफ थिंग, ये इस तरह की जॉब्स हैं. मोटिवेशन बस एक्स्ट्रा मनी के लिहाज से, जहां तक मेरा ख्याल है.
ठीक, ऑलराइट. एनीबॉडी एल्स वांट्स टू से समथिंग? जी, anybody else wants to say something? जिस तरह एक स्टूडेंट ने मैसेज में लिखा है कि शहजाद ने कि उबर कंपनी नीड्स सम न्यू पॉलिसीज फॉर हेल्थ बेनिफिट्स एंड मेडिकल अलाउंसेस. देखिए ये काइंड ऑफ अ वे इट इज इम्पोर्टेंट, बिकॉज देखिए जो गिग इकोनॉमी है ये जाहिर है इट इज very much a kind of like, say for example, the people who work part time, obviously they are not bound by like any legal contract or any legal laws but still, like, the companies are also not bound to give them any kind of facility in case of their illness, in case of their problems, in case of anything that happens to them. So that basically is sometimes very demotivating for the people. But let's see, like, we'll be talking about this gig economy as well, that how much this gig economy is affecting our performance of the people basically working with different kind of organizations. And like, and we shall be also looking at, like, some high performance work systems. So uh, like, again, we cannot uh, kind of like, we have to realize that, like, the motivation is very, very important for an organization to work. If the employees who are working are not motivated, if the students studying in the class are not motivated, if the people actually in your environment are not motivated, they are not going to achieve their objectives. And this is what something this slide says, that employees who are motivated and work hard to achieve personal organizational goals can become crucial competitive advantage for a firm. You actually have got a very important advantage. You have got a very important competitive advantage if you have got competitive people, like, and you have got motivated people. Like, say for example, what about the China? What about about the Japan? No, Kareem and Uber are not same. They are not, like Meg is asking the question. It's not. They are not the same. So employees are, if the employees are motivated, like, say for example, why do you think China is winning every economic battle? Like, why do you think China is getting so big and so advanced over the time? Because the people are so motivated. If the people get motivated, they can do anything. They can achieve anything, like, and that's what basically is happening to them. They have got a lot of motivations. Like, say for example, if you look at the China's background, some, like, 30, 40 years ago, uh, even, like, like if you go into the 1960s, 70s or 80s, to some extent, you will find that China was not as big as this is today, basically because there were so many problems. Like, millions of people used to die in China because of famine, because of drought, because of less food. And that was a big, big problem with the China. China was a very, very bad economy at that point of time, but somehow they revived. The people basically, like, worked. They worked so hard that everything turned, like, in their favor. Now they are the second largest economy in the world, and they are actually going to be the first largest economy in the world very soon. Like, it's something is very much on the cards. Basically, they are not stopping at this particular point. They are actually going and moving very, very fast, and things basically are getting so good for the China so far. And China, and basically, like, is also flexing its political muscles and its military muscles. So China is strong from all the respects now. Economy of China is very big, very strong. Similarly, the military, like, militarily, China is also very big. And similarly, like, other kind of the politically, this is in creating influence. Like, say for example, you have seen that China is investing so much in Africa. It is investing in so many neighboring countries. It is investing at so many places, and these investments are basically being made. These investments are made to actually increase their political influence. And this political influence basically is increasing day by day of these all Chinese firms and the country, basically because now they are basically following the route of increasing their political influence on the neighboring countries, increasing their influence on other kind of regions, like as far as Africa. And they are basically, like, having kind of a very big military and a lot of, like, power in terms of military equipments. So it's something, but, like, and that has all been possible because of their people. Like, they have got people who are very, very highly motivated, who work day and night, who work, like, many hours a day. And that basically is helping them to achieve, like, their targets. Now, it's a very important question, like, say for example, Uh, is everybody facing the sound problem? Like, can you hear my voice?
Yes, sir.
All right, some of the students
Yes,
basically
sir.
left a message that they are facing problem. They can agree if this is not a problem with everyone, that might be problem only with your system. So please, if you could re-log in, you can actually get it fixed. सीरत इसके साथ ना खेलें ये, just don't do it. ये सीरत इसको highlight ना करें please. So
Okay, sir.
we are talking about this, like it's a very important question, and perhaps you all basically should have got some kind of answer for that. Uh, this Hafiza Qulatulain also having kind of a problem, so no sound problem, all right. Okay, so this is a very important question. Can employees be motivated without giving them money? Now, if I ask you this question, like, can you think about any motivation without money? क्या ख्याल है आपका, कोई मोटिवेशन हो सकती है मनी के बगैर in the employees? Like, because right now the basic motivating factor for any job is the money. Yes, Sumaira? Sumaira, go on.
यस सर, सर ये तो बेसिक है कि अगर आपको कुछ अर्न कर रहे हैं तो ये आपकी मोटिवेशन का फर्स्ट पार्ट है कि आपको कुछ अर्निंग हो रही है। अब कहीं अगर आप 9 to 5 की जॉब करते हैं, कहीं भी जॉब करते हैं या आप फ्रीलांसिंग करते हैं, तो बगैर किसी अर्निंग के तो जॉब की मोटिवेशन बेसिकली ये अर्निंग ही है, ये मनी ही है
Right,
जो
right. So do
इसकी
you think,
बेसिक।
like, the money, without money you cannot motivate people, right?
नहीं सर, एटलीस्ट
Yes.
अगर आपने अर्न कर रहे हैं, लेकिन अगर आप वेलफेयर साइट पर हैं तो उसकी बात एक अलग है। लेकिन अगर आप कोऑपरेटिव टाइम पर हैं, आप जहाँ पे जॉब कर रहे हैं, जहाँ पे आपको अर्न करना है, आपको अपनी फैमिली के लिए लेकर आना है, ब्रेड एंड बटर की आपको जरूरत है, तो फिर आपको तो मनी की जरूरत होगी। यही बेसिक मोटिवेशन होती है कहीं भी
All
काम
right.
करने के लिए।
Yes, Mohit,
उसके
what
बाद
do you want?
सेकंड थिंग्स आती हैं।
जी, जी. Okay, okay.
सर एक्सेप्ट मनी आप और भी तरीके से मोटिवेट कर सकते हैं, जैसे आप मेडिकल फैसिलिटीज दे रहे हैं, आफ्टर रिटायरमेंट आप कंप्यूटेशंस बढ़ा दें उनके पेंशन्स के, तो इस हिसाब से भी आप मोटिवेट कर सकते हैं अगर आप मनी के अलावा मोटिवेट करना चाहते हैं अपने एम्प्लॉयज को।
तो मतलब आप at the end of the day वो money ही होगी ना, वही कि like say for example you are promising some perks after some time or something like that, तो money ही होगी या कुछ और भी हो सकता है? So Moise Khan says that money is the biggest motivation. Oh, like you all have got the consensus कि like without the money you cannot motivate people. That is true to a large extent, of course. Like you cannot like downplay the importance of money anyway. Like in these all kind of things, the biggest reward if money is less, but other facilities are given, like medical, some kind of motivation, consideration is important for both sides. But okay, so Mamuna, what do you want to say? Okay. देखिए, अभी एक बहुत अरसे से आपको पता है कि एक वॉर चल रही थी अफगानिस्तान में बिटवीन अमेरिका एंड अफगानीज, or like the Muslim like kind of jihadis that basically were fighting there. आपका क्या ख्याल है कि why America, despite the fact it had got all the resources, it had got all the money, it had got all the kind of very, very advanced equipments, very, very advanced. You cannot imagine that how advanced equipments were available to the Americans, American army at that point of time. Like they were actually like they had got a lot of money, and you cannot imagine the perks they get if any of the like their personnel work in the Afghanistan or in these kind of regions. They generally get very, very high salaries, they get a lot of money, so much money that actually might be good for their whole lives basically if they work a few years in the Afghanistan under this all their army with the US. But why do you think they couldn't win? Like why, what was stopping them from winning actually? Like of course the way the US actually has left Afghanistan has opened so many doors for China and Russia. Now China and Russia are basically flexing their muscles. They are thinking that the Americans' power has not led them to victory into the Afghanistan, so they are not actually militarily as effective as they used to be. So Afghanistan land is of no use for them now, so they leave. So they have already used their resources. Okay, okay. So you think like they have got what they wanted. Interesting. All right. देखिए उस वक्त basically this could be a point of view of course yours, but like the people who were fighting with them, they were not fighting for money. They actually had got a different kind of considerations, and perhaps those considerations were stronger than the consideration of money. So like a person who is fighting with you and he has got an objective to die, you can't stop him. You can't basically like fight with him. Like everybody, like say for example, if a person is fighting to save his life and the person is actually fighting to give his life, so it's a very very different kind of a work like war place, and this is a very warfare, like it's a very different kind of thing. But their motivation was different. They were actually defending their country. They were defending, they had got other kind of religious considerations or other kind of considerations. But anyway, we cannot of course say like the money, without money you cannot, you can, we can say that like without money it's a very important, very very like difficult to motivate people. जिस तरह अगर आप इसके pointers को देखें तो Hicks Waldron, when he was chief executive of Avon, once said, it took me a long while to learn that people do what you pay for them to do, not what you ask them to do. आपके पास जिस तरह जो लोग आमतौर पर जिस चीज के लिए ये मैमुना को आवाज नहीं आ रही है, is this again a problem with everyone? Memuna is sending me message that she is not able to hear me. तो अगर आप लोगों सबको आवाज आ रही है तो प्लीज मैसेज करें मैमुना को और बताएं कि भाई we are actually able to hear sir, and like if you are not having the voice, it might be a problem on your part. Or does anybody like Memuna, if I can send her to the message again? आप सबको तो आवाज आ रही है ना भाई?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. बिल्कुल सही क्लियर आवाज
ये तो ये बेसिकली 2-3 दफा मेमुना का मैसेज आया है. अब if somebody could text her के like it's not a problem on our part, it's a problem on her part basically. So please if she could manage it. Anyway, so when he was the chief executive of Avon, like one more thing is that the recording of this lecture will also be available after the class. So if you are missing some part because of the disruptions in your internet or anything, perhaps you will be able to listen to that particular part from the audio or from the audio of the lecture. So once said, it took me a long while to learn that people do what you pay them to do. Like he was of the very much kind of realization that money is the biggest kind of a consideration that people have. Like आप जिनको आप जिस चीज के लिए पे कर रहे होते हैं लोगों को, वो लोग वो काम करते हैं. They don't actually do what you ask them to do, rather they do what you basically are like are paying them to do. Okay, now actually like I know that now voice is clear now. Okay, so don't like no everybody does, just don't send the message. So surveys show that although money is not a major factor but influences the choice of job, so money can attract and retain top performers. ये बड़ा एक important है. देखें हमारे जो government, ये हम लोगों ने education industry में हमें बहुत ज़्यादा हम इस बात को feel कर रहे हैं और observe कर रहे हैं कि what has happened in our education industry, कि so many people were sent, like as myself also went for the PhD on the money of the government. And when they have returned and they basically have been absorbed and have been attracted by the private sector, because the private sector was offering double or like even sometimes in some of the cases 3 times the salary of the salary they were getting from the government organizations. So they have left the government organizations and gone to the private organizations. So like that is what something is a very important, like the government has sent people for the work for the PhDs, for the degrees, and for the trainings. And once they have come back, like they have lost them to the private sector, and they have not been able to get advantage of them. So it's a very kind of a problem. So money can attract and retain top performers. आपको तो private sector इस वक्त जो grow कर रहा है पाकिस्तान में, अगर आप private universities को देखें तो private universities are doing better than the government universities. And why do you think they do it? Like, because they have got a lot of money. They have got money which they can raise or attract people. Yes, Maimuna, what do you want to say? ये मेमुना के साथ क्या इशू है यार, बार बार इनका हैंड रेज होता है and she doesn't talk. So money can attract and retain top performers. Money cannot improve job related skills unless used for training purposes. Of course, you can use that money for improving the skills of the people as well. And the impact of monetary incentives should not be dismissed, but we should note that money is not always the best motivator for the most employees. What other motivations can be possible? Like, say, for example, along with the money, you also need the motivation, you will get the motivation if you are recognized and appreciated. Appreciation and recognition are very important. If any organization gives you money only, but it does not recognize you, it does not appreciate you, it does not recognize your services, it does not appreciate your services, you feel demotivated, no matter how much money you are getting. But like, if you are, like, say, for example, if you are having a kind of a if you are having a kind of a job where you have got a lot of money, but you are not appreciated, you are not given any kind of like the appreciation, and your work is not recognized. जिस तरह आप घर में भी अगर कोई काम करें, और घर में काम करने से अगर आपको जो है वो कोई बेसिकली जो है वो आपको काम करने की कोई रिकग्निशन ना मिल रही हो, तो people get demotivated so many times. So, and it is also important that you are a part of a winning team. देखें, जो जीत होती है ना, जो winning होती है, that basically removes your tiredness. Like, say, for example, अगर आप बहुत ज़्यादा जो है वो पूरा दिन काम करते हैं and you basically win at the end of the day. So, you have to be if a people are part of the winning team, देखिए जो winning होती है ना, that basically makes you always satisfied in the sense of motivated. Winning is always important for going further. Like when you basically, like, say, for example, अगर आप कोई काम करते हैं and you basically are a part of a winning team and you are enjoying the work, you get motivated and you work even harder. And similarly, you have the companies should provide the feeling sense of belonging. They should actually आपको पता है कि बहुत सारी organizations में जिस तरह मिसाल के तौर पर आपके पेरेंट्स के साथ है, like if you don't feel a kind of a belongingness with them, or like your relatives as well, with whom like you feel belonging, or when you have got a feeling sense of belonging with them, you belong to them, you are a part of their family or you are part of their organization, and they basically take care of you, that also provides a lot of motivation to them. And some of the times responsibilities motivate you. Like, say, for example, when you are not given a particular kind of a task, or you are not basically trusted for something in your organization, you feel demotivated. But if somehow you are given responsibility, when you are given responsibility, you always feel important. Like, because, like, say, for example, if a company is giving you a responsibility, it means that the company is making you more important, and that basically is important. It means that basically thinks that you are good and you are basically important for the organization. So that also makes people motivated. So you can ask any questions in the middle as well. If you have got any questions, please raise your hand and let me know, that what basically is your question. All right. So if you have got, does anybody have got any questions so far?
सर एक क्वेश्चन
Please.
यानी कि ये तो कंपनीज की बात है, हमें जिंदगी में हर एक जगह के लिए मोटिवेशन चाहिए होती है, चाहे वो हम किसी भी जगह पे हैं। तो मोटिवेशन मनी के लिए अगर हम कंपनी साइड पे बात करें या जॉब साइड के लिए, तो वो तो हमें लाजमी ही चाहिए।
True.
तो लाजमी है, लेकिन अगर फर्स्ट जो हम काम करने जा रहे हैं हम खुद को मोटिवेट नहीं करेंगे। आपने चाइना की बात की, चाइना के जो उनकी मेन चीज वहां से एजुकेशन से स्टार्ट होती है, और वो लोग अपने बंदों पे इतना यानी कि इन्वेस्ट करते हैं इस लिहाज से कि उनको गाहे बगाहे मोटिवेट करते हैं। तो यही चीज अगर
uh, this is the person basically due to which this particular chapter is called Taylorism. Frederick Winslow Taylor. This Frederick Winslow Taylor actually was a very important, force in the motivation, and he basically is treated as or taken as a father of scientific management. आपको पता है कि every subject uh, has, say for example, even the subject related to the arts and social sciences basically have not remained art anymore. They have become sciences. They are all scientific knowledges are used. Every kind of a subject basically is using technical kind of analysis, and they're trying to deduce and trying to come out with some kind of an understanding with a very with a kind of scientific methods and scientific procedures. So this Frederick Winslow Taylor, born in 1856 and died in 1915, he was the father of a scientific management. We shall see that what he said about this scientific management. This is about the Taylorism. So what actually he said, that develop a scientific approach to each element of person's job. देखिए, आपको पता है कि I think you would have heard about the story of Adam Smith. एडम स्मिथ की एक स्टोरी बहुत मशहूर है। ये एडम स्मिथ वो साहब है जिन्होंने इकोनॉमिक्स को इंट्रोड्यूस कराया। Adam Smith once went to the a needle shop, needle factory, जहाँ पे लोग needles बना रहे थे, सुइयां बना रहे थे। तो what he saw that one person is making the complete needle, and on average one person was able to produce 40 needles a day. What he said कि इस तरह से जब एक शख्स पूरी needle बनाता है तो that takes so much time, and that actually requires a lot of skills and a lot of effort for all the things basically that the person is performing. What he did basically, he introduced division of labor. जिस तरह अगर आप आजकल गारमेंट्स की फैक्ट्रीज में जाएं तो गारमेंट्स की फैक्ट्रीज में इसको समझना आसान है, क्योंकि आप मिसाल के तौर पर आप देखें कि एक जो शख्स है बैठा हुआ वो जो है वो एक पार्ट बना रहा है शर्ट का, दूसरा शख्स दूसरा पार्ट बना रहा है, तीसरा शख्स तीसरा पार्ट बना रहा है, चौथा शख्स उसमें जो है वो बटन्स लगा रहा है, पांचवा शख्स उसमें जो है वो ओवरलॉकिंग कर रहा है. देयर आर सो मेनी पीपल हु वर्क ऑन द सेम शर्ट, एंड दैट शर्ट बेसिकली एंड at every stage it goes through a kind of a procedure. So that basically it makes what, it actually makes, it creates a kind of expertise, it creates a kind of the people basically get trained and the people get better on something, and that is what basically is a scientific approach. And what happened in the needle factory when Adam Smith did this, the people who were producing 40 needles a day on average, they started producing 40,000 needles a day. Can you imagine? I'm not exaggerating this. This is what basically is a true fact. You can Google it and you can find this out from the internet as well. And what actually happened, that after introducing this scientific approach of division of labor, in which the work was divided between the different people, and they were able to create this or make these needles, their performance improved quite significantly. And from the 40 needles on average per day, their production increased to 40,000 needles per day. So you can imagine that how important this kind of a thing is. So you can basically introduce a scientific approach for each element of the person's job. जिस तरह एक छोटी सी एक स्टडी होती है टाइम एंड मोशन स्टडी, जिस तरह मिसाल के तौर पर अगर आप ये देखें कि इफ यू हैव गॉट अ लार्ज लॉट ऑफ ब्रिक्स, एक बहुत सारी आपके पास ब्रिक्स हैं, एंड यू वांट टू move these bricks from one place to another. Now, there is a kind of a possibility that you can ask labor to just carry bricks from one place to another. But what you can do is as well, you can create a chain in the sense that one person gives brick to other person, the other person gives to another person, and in that way basically this happens. So this is a division of labor, and you can actually judge that how much is a time and motion study, how much a motion takes time. Say for example, a person who is say for example, if you are trying to find out the time and motion for a situation when one person is carrying the brick all the way, तो उसमें आप वो देखें वो क्या करेगा, वो ब्रिक को उठाएगा, वो लेके जाएगा, वो ब्रिक को रखेगा, उठेगा और दोबारा वापस आएगा. अब इसमें क्या होगा कि like say for example one person is like picking up the brick and he's giving to other, like, and things basically go very very fast, and things basically like, and that is called time and motion studies kind of a thing. So the people basically like he developed scientific approaches to management, and the thing second thing basically his principle is to scientifically select, train, teach and develop workers. If you really want them to be productive and really want them to basically like take work from them, you will have to scientifically select them. Like it's not, you should not be basing your selection on the basis of hunches. देखिए हंच का मतलब क्या होता है, जिस तरह मिसाल के तौर पर अगर आप ये सोचें कि अगर मैं ये कहूं कि आज बारिश होगी या आज बारिश नहीं होगी, I have got two ways of doing it. One way is that I look at the clouds, I look at the sky, and I use my old experience. I use my old kind of an ideas that like what happens when this kind of weather develops, or these kind of clouds come, or the wind actually like goes into this particular kind of a direction. So I will be able to judge it. I will be able to guess it. Say for example, sometimes I'll be correct, sometimes I'll not be correct, and the possibility is that most of the times I will not be correct. But what about the weather forecasting agencies? Like, these weather forecasting agencies are using scientific methods. They are using scientific approaches, and they are trying to guess, like, whether it is going to rain today, what kind of temperature we are going to have in the morning and in the evening, and how things basically are going to happen over the 3-4 days next, over the next 3-4 days. So these actually, they are the two approaches which are different. Like, one is based on hunches and the other is based on sciences. So the similar thing is like, there, like say for example, if you're selecting a person, you cannot judge his emotion, but you have got emotional, like, you have got EQ test, emotional quotient test. Like perhaps you would have heard about intelligence quotient tests, but you also have got EQ tests, and you have got other kind of like scientific methods available through which you can like you can basically judge a person, like how good that person is. And you should also be training them scientifically, teaching them and developing like these kind of workers by using scientific methods. Another very important principle of Frederick Taylor is that encourage cooperation between workers and managers. Like, there should be cooperation. There should not be a gap of communication, gap of working between the workers and managers. Managers are not sacred cows. Managers are not like God forbid gods. They are basically like the people, and the workers basically are working for them. They should have got a very good relationship, and they should actually have got a cooperation with each other. It should not be the case that the managers don't work with the workers, or the workers don't work with the managers. You can't achieve your objectives if they both basically are working for themselves, and they are not working for the for the same goal, and they are not cooperating with each other. Like say for example, like right now, this is a relationship between me and you basically. Like if we don't cooperate with each other, things cannot go. Like say for example, today we arranged an online class. This class could have been missed basically because of the conditions in the city, but since we have cooperated, so class actually has been possible, and somehow we are able to actually discuss something, and somehow we are able to learn something new from the chapter. And another principle, the last principle of Frederick Winslow Taylor, is that divide work and responsibility according to who is better suited to each task. Like, you have to be scientifically, because he was an engineer and he was a scientist, he wanted to have science involved in all the endeavors of the organization. And he basically encouraged people to divide work and responsibility according to the abilities, not according to your likes and dislikes. Any questions you have got in your mind? Can you hold for a minute, please? Okay, I'm sorry for the wait. A core means important, like the main. Core means main. Okay. So the main values that Taylor basically suggests, the first one is a rule of reason, not the rule of likes and dislikes. Like say for example, you are giving tasks to someone just because you like him, or you are not giving tasks to someone because you don't like him, or you are basically giving some kind of a task to somebody because he belongs to a certain kind of a group, or he does not, like you're not giving some task to somebody who is not who does not belong to certain kind of a group. So that you should be like, there should be a rule of reason. There should be reason for everything. And similarly, you should improve quality and lower costs, because of course uh, reduction of the cost is the task of a manager, because like if you are not reducing the costs, you are basically like having a kind of a trouble in the end, basically, because you will not be able to meet with the uh, objectives of your organization with a given kind of a budget that you have. Similarly, wages again provide incentive for the people to work, and you should be providing at least enough wages that the people are able to meet with their basic needs. And if that money is not available to them, if the money is not there with them, like you are not able to get enough salaries that they can get things basically done, or they can basically get some basic like necessities for their families and for themselves, they will definitely be suffering, and their suffering can affect their work, and their work can affect the goals of the organization. So higher wages are in the interest of everyone. Like higher wages are not only good for the people or the workers, they are also good for the organization. Like say for example, if a person is happy in terms of his needs and things, he will be basically more productive for the organization. And if he's more productive, of course he is basically going to be more it's better for the organization. You should be increasing outputs. You should be managing labor well. Like labor management is a big task. It's a scientific thing. I'm sorry. It does not you cannot rule with a stick. You have to manage those labors, and human resources management is the kind of a thing that basically is very common these days. The people are sent for training all over the world, and they are basically asked to get the new skills from different kind of people, and that basically is a very common now. So experimentations, like you, if you really want to do new things and come up with the new ideas, you will have to do the experimentation. Like this is very much important that you do the experimentation. And like experiments, जिस तरह आप मिसाल के तौर पर घर में जो खाना बनाते हैं, you always make a similar kind of a food every day, but if you experiment with your dishes, you can get some new dishes in your menu lists. Like experiment, this experiment will cost less. Like say for example, you make a combination of something that you don't do every day. Like say for example, like you cook uh, bangan with fish. So like what worst could happen? That you can basically, your dish will be wasted, but like if somehow you start liking that dish, that will add to the menu, and you will actually be enjoying that dish in the future. So similarly, like there are kind of experimentations that can happen, and these experimentations can always these experiments always give you new dimensions. This, if the people would not have experimented with new things, you would not have got the new ideas or new things. So your tasks should be clear. You should have a good idea that what people are trying to do and what basically they have to do. And similarly, you should provide them training. Like the training is important, because, and this training should be scientific in the sense, like it should be providing you the people, like that the real abilities to work and achieve the objectives of the organization.